This episode today is more about how you should think about systems, how you should lead their development and ensure that they actually get implemented and involved. Let me give you an example of how systems and how important they are and how they show up in action. So years ago, Howard Schultz, he's the former CEO of Starbucks. One day he walks into a store in Chicago and he orders a latte and it came out and it was too cold. Now Schultz didn't fire the barista. Instead, he flew back to headquarters and he mandated a system-wide change. From then on, Starbucks used a thermometer to heat the milk exactly to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this is not micromanagement, this is leadership. Now, that one system there, tweaked from Schultz consistently across 30,000 stores. A system isn't done when it's actually written, it's done when it's used, it's trusted, it's evolved. Great CEOs don't just install systems, they continue to amplify them over time. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure of simplifying the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. This is the final episode of our 7-part series on the Chiropractic CEO Code, and I've had some lovely feedback from many of you. So for those of you that respond to my emails or reach out on socials and tell me that you're finding this helpful and inspirational and it's helping you grow your practice and serve more people, I want to say a big thank you. So it means the world to me when I get those messages. Over the past 6 episodes, we've explored what it means to truly lead your practice, not just as a technician or even as a manager, but as a CEO. We covered vision and direction and how to define where you're headed and how to lead with clarity. We talked marketing and visibility and how to become the go-to chiropractor in your community. We talked about financial health and the key numbers that every CEO needs to know. Last week, we talked about team and culture and how to build and lead a high-performance, values-driven team. And now we're landing the plane with one of the most misunderstood and often avoided areas of CEO responsibility. We're talking about systems and processes. But before we dive in, I want to let you know that if you're looking for a deeper conversation about systems, especially why they often fail, how to co-create them with your team, and what core systems every practice needs, then go back and check out episode 424, when I was actually walking our way around the 7-figure lifestyle triangle, the 3 big problems that you need to solve and the systems that help you do that there. I have a conversation there all about systems, but I want to give you a quick little recap of that as well. In that episode, we talk about why systems don't work and how to fix that. We talk about why they need to be co-created, they need to be visible, and they need to be regularly trained there too. I'll show you where to begin, which systems to start with, and how to pick your first system. We differentiate between systems and checklists and when you need each inside of that too. We talked about the 7 core systems every practice needs. So there's the new patient journey, there's a report of findings, there's daily adjustments, team meetings, the marketing engine there too, training systems, and the final one there is the financial systems, And also in that episode there, I talk about where should your systems live, how to store and update the operating system manual so it's easy to access, use, and evolve. Now, today we're not going to repeat that stuff. That's all there back in episode 424, This episode today is more about how you should think about systems, how you should lead their development and ensure that they actually get implemented and involve, Now, here's the thing. If your practice can't function without you, if your team constantly forgets the right way to do things, or if you find yourself solving the same problem over again and again, you don't have a people problem, You've got a systems problem, Now, don't worry. This episode isn't about turning you into a systems engineer, but it is about shifting how you think about systems as the CEO of your business. Because when you understand how to lead systems development and how to make sure that those systems actually get implemented and evolve, you unlock a level of consistency, scalability, and peace of mind in your practice. So here's what we're going to cover in today's episode, the 3 things. The first is we're going to talk about the CEO lens on systems. So how is it that high-performing chiropractors actually think about and lead systems differently than technicians and managers? Number 2, we'll talk about the 3 rules of systems first thinking, This is a really simple framework to guide you on how to design, implement, and lead systems that actually get used. And then third and finally, we'll talk about keeping your systems alive. So how do we evolve and optimize our systems over time so they keep on working as you grow? So let's dive in. So the first one we're going to talk about here is the CEO lens on systems. Now, most chiropractors don't think about systems until something breaks. So a patient falls through the cracks, a CA forgets the follow-up, or you walk into the adjusting room and you realize that nobody prepared what you needed. Now, in those moments, we go looking for a quick fix, okay? We duct tape things together, we tell the team what to do next time, and we hope that it actually sticks. But that's not systems thinking, that's firefighting, okay? As a CEO, your relationship with systems must shift. You're not just reacting to problems. You need to start proactively creating structure that supports growth. Now, here's the big idea, okay? Technicians build systems to avoid pain, and CEOs build systems to amplify outcomes, okay? A technician says, how do I stop this from breaking again? And a CEO says, what structure do we need to make this consistently excellent and scalable? They're different ways, they're close, but they're different fundamental ways of thinking about things. Now, you do not have to build every system yourself, but you do need to identify what needs to be systematized, okay? You need to set the standard of how it should work, and you need to lead the process so that it gets built, used, and refined, okay? Let me say those three things again. You don't need to be the one responsible for building every system, but you do need to identify what needs to be systematized. You need to set the standard for how it should work, and you should lead the process so that it gets built, used, and refined. So they're the three things as CEO that you are responsible for. Now, when systems are aligned with your visions and your values, they stop being a constraint and they become a force multiplier. This is often what we think, that systems are kind of boring, they're going to slow us down, they're going to get in the way. They don't. When they're done right, they become something that actually allows you to grow your practice even faster. They protect your energy, they protect your team, and of course, as a part of all of this, they protect your brand too. Now, let's talk about the 3 rules of systems first thinking. Now, once you start to think like a CEO, the way you approach systems shifts, okay? You stop building them to fix today's fire, and instead you start building them to support long-term success. This is what we want in practice, okay? An email last week from a lovely young chiropractor who has, again, went straight from school into practice, was exhausted, overwhelmed, ended up stopping that, became an associate, and is now wanting to get back into running his own practice again, but he's scared, almost terrified, of losing his life in the process, okay? And that tells me, again, he's thinking about systems the wrong way. Let me give you an example of how systems and how important they are and how they show up in action. So years ago, Howard Schultz, you might remember that name, he's the former CEO of Starbucks, was obsessed with one thing, making sure that every customer, no matter where they were in the world, got the same great experience. One day he walks into a store in Chicago and he orders a latte, and it came out and it was too cold. The barista had eyeballed the temperature instead of following the exact process. Now, Schultz didn't fire the barista. Instead, he flew back to headquarters and he mandated a system-wide change. From then on, Starbucks used a thermometer to heat the milk exactly to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. There was no guesswork allowed, and they trained on it relentlessly, okay? Now, this is not micromanagement. This is leadership, because Schultz knew that the brand depended on predictable quality, okay? This is what we need in our practice. The first adjustment on Monday morning needs to be as good as the last adjustment on Friday afternoon, okay? And it doesn't matter with which chiropractor it is. And this can happen if you have the right systems in place. Now, that one system there, tweaked from Schultz consistently across 30,000 stores, all right? Now, we think this is hard to deal with our practice, or some of you out there that have multiple practices. There are companies out there implementing this across tens of thousands of stores and doing it very well, okay? Now, before you roll your eyes about these sorts of systems, remember, Starbucks is selling their coffees for $5, $6, $7 a coffee. Not necessarily because their beans are better, but because the experience is consistent. Consistency is really, our practice members deserve consistency. As I said beforehand, is the first adjustment in your day as good as the middle one, the one at the end of the week? That level of consistency is what inspires referrals. That level of consistency is what helps our practice members get results. That level of consistency allows us as chiropractors to take over the world as well. So this is what makes things possible when we start to lock in. Okay, now here are the rules that are going to help you lead systems more effectively. There are 3 rules I want to share with you, okay? The first is this: if it matters, systematize it, okay? So getting a cold coffee matters. We want the coffee the right temperature. I hate getting a cold coffee as well. So anything that happens regularly or anything that you cannot afford to go wrong deserves a clear and repeatable system. So your new patient process, your report of findings, okay, your prep before team meetings. If it matters, it gets a method. Now, this doesn't mean overcomplicating. In fact, the best systems are often written on a single page. They should be really simple. I talk about this a little bit more in episode 424, okay? The CEO prompt here, what you really need to be thinking about is, if I stepped away tomorrow, how would this run without me? Okay? Rule number 2, really important here, is don't build it alone. Systems built in isolation tend to get ignored. So we, as a CEO and the owner of our business, tend to think that we have this fantastic idea about how the phone should be answered, how the patient should be welcomed. We go and over the weekend and maybe we get on ChatGPT. We build all of this and then we come and we give it to our team and they look at it and they never, because they weren't involved, there's no buy-in with it, it never actually gets implemented. So if you want your team to use the systems, you need to involve them in creating them. You need to ask them what's working and what doesn't. Build it together. Make it there. Make sure that they have ownership. This is how you build buy-in, okay? The CEO prompt to think about it here is, how can I lead the conversation, not just the instructions? This is about innovation as a team, not about you just sitting up here as a CEO coming in as some kind of ogre on top of everybody. And the third rule is to make systems visible. If your systems live in a drawer, in a dusty Google Doc, it's already dead, okay? It's not going to work. Great systems are embedded into training, embedded into onboarding. They're part of daily rhythms and regular reviews. So this means we need to mention our systems in our meetings. We need to train on it monthly. We need to be refining it quarterly. The CEO prompt here really is, where does this system live and how often is it seen? If you create this wonderful book of systems, regardless whether it's on Notion or wherever it is there too, if it's not visible, if it's not something that's regularly trained on, if it's not part of the infrastructure of your business there too, it's going to disappear, all right? So let me give you an example of systems thinking at a high level, okay? Consider McDonald's. Now, not because we want to model their food or necessarily their mission, but because they know how to build systems that scale, okay? So Ray Kroc didn't invent the hamburger, but what he did was take a chaotic, inconsistent mum and pop restaurant model and turn it into a predictable, repeatable, and scalable business, okay? Every McDonald's in the world operates on a foundation of tightly systematized processes. Whether you're in Melbourne, Memphis, or Manila, you know what you're going to get. Now, these systems aren't glamorous, but they make it possible to scale quickly to their standards, okay? Train their staff and reduce dependence on any one person. Those systems, or that's the systems to be kind of looking at it through a CEO lens. That's how we need to think. Now, here's the kicker. I often say McDonald's can create a multi-7-figure business. Each of their franchises are. They serve thousands of customers a day often, and certainly thousands of customers a week. And it's completely run by 16-year-olds. So what's your excuse? We tell ourselves it's hard to find good staff. And yes, hiring absolutely matters. But great people struggle in broken systems, and average people on the other side thrive in strong ones. And so as CEO, it's your job to build an environment and the culture like we talked about last week, where your team can perform at their best without needing to be having their hand constantly held, okay? So those 3 rules are, if it matters, systematize it, okay? Number 2, don't build it alone. And number 3 is make sure that the system is visible. All right. The third part that we're going to be talking about through here is keeping your systems alive. Now, most chiropractors stop once the system is created, okay? So put a great system and maybe you've created it with your team, you've begun to implement it, it becomes part of who you are culturally wise as well, but that's it. Great CEOs know that your systems are a living asset. That means it needs to evolve. The system that you had right now, what might have worked at 80 patient visits a week, may well break down when you get to 150. What works with 1 CA may well not work with 2 CAs. And so how do you make sure that your systems keep on working? role, what you need to do with this is you need to create a systems review rhythm. That means you need to review your systems every 6 to 12 months. Again, we can use things like our weekly team meetings to gather feedback on what's working and not working. You don't want to wait for a crisis to fix a problem. And again, when your team gets used to implementing and running systems there too, and you're having regular staff meetings, they're going to tell you about these things before they break, okay? You want to start to document the drift. Systems are going to drift over time, especially if you stop talking about them. But even if you are talking about them, as I mentioned before, what works at 80 a week is not going to work at 150 and certainly is not going to work at 300 a week, okay? So if what's being done is not working anymore, or if what's being done doesn't match what's documented, we need to realign. Entropy breakdown is a natural part of the environment. So we start off doing things really great, and before you know it, it's shifted just a little 1%, and then it's 1% of 1%. And before we know it, the way that we answer the phone to greet our new patients is nothing like what it was when we trained on it 6 months ago. The thing also that helps to keep our systems alive and keep everybody on track with them is to celebrate systems win. When something works well because of a system, then name it and celebrate it as well. This reinforces the culture, reminds the team. So it's, identifying when somebody, answered the phone in the right way, followed the structure there, gave someone a beautiful onboarding, when you did a great job or one of your staff associates did a great job with their report of findings or daily interactions, then recognize it, reward it. Remember, a system isn't done when it's actually written. It's done when it's used, it's trusted, it's evolved. Great CEOs don't just install systems. They continue to amplify them over time. They stay curious, okay? They stay involved. They know that systems are the secret that allow them to continue to scale their practice, okay? In building a practice and wanting a practice to get better with every iteration, the systems need to be there. So this brings us to the end of this episode and this series here, the final chapter on the Chiropractic CEO Code. So let's quickly recap what it is that we covered today. We talked about the lens through which the CEO needs to think about systems. We talked about the 3 rules of systems first thinking, and we talked about how to keep your systems alive so they evolve with your practice, okay? The real win isn't in having a perfect operational manual. It's having and creating a practice where your systems live in the day-to-day. They protect your team and they reflect your vision as well. And with that, we've now got our full CEO code. We've talked about vision and direction, marketing and visibility, financial health, team and culture, systems and operation. These 5 building blocks through here are areas that you need to have a level of mastery over. And when you have a level of mastery over these, it allows you to have a practice with impact, with income, with enjoyment, without overwhelm, without exhaustion, okay? This is what often happens to chiropractors when we build big, profitable practices that are changing lives. We end up running ourselves down into a hole. These are the 5 areas that unlock true leverage in your practice, okay? They're your responsibility as the CEO. Now, you don't have to master all of them overnight. You couldn't, okay? If you tried to do that, it would lead to overwhelm and burnout. But what you do want to do is start giving one of these or a few of them your attention that they deserve. Inside your weekly CEO time that we spoke right back at the beginning, this is where you'll start to notice a shift, okay? You'll see more clarity, you'll have more freedom, you'll have more momentum there too, and you'll have more profitability in your practice, okay? You'll go from feeling reactive to running a practice with purpose, okay? So here's your action step. Pick one system in your practice that isn't being followed, that lives just inside of your head, or that has become outdated, or you know that there's been some drift there as well. Book 30 minutes this week to outline what that system should look like. Loop the team in and make sure that you co-create it, okay? And decide where it will live and how often you'll be reviewing it. All right, folks, that's it for today and for this series. Thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives, and I'll see you back here next week. Bye, folks. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.